All right. What is up, YouTube? We're back with the podcast. We did back-to-back regionals, so that was fun. Uh,
I am exhausted.
yeah. I I made the joke that on our trip back from the Seattle regional that when I got home I was gonna get my second one. That didn't happen. I was just like I felt like I was like freaking. I felt real tired and felt kind of sick. And then all that happened is I stopped feeling sick, but I still was tired when I got
I
back.
feel tired and sick too, to the point that, and I didn't tell you this, like I woke up long enough yesterday
Mm,
to send a text message to my supervisor and say, "Yeah, I'm not coming in today because I'm not feeling great."
mm.
I slept until 5 p.m. yesterday.
That's crazy. I slept until what was it? So I got home around like 10 at night, and I think I didn't go to sleep until like 11, but I slept until like 9, which is almost 10, which almost 12 hours. And that's very unusual for me because usually I sleep like 6 at most, even without an alarm or anything. It's just crazy, exhausted after back to back, and I realized that I think push around 300 people. I think that's my limit as an introvert. Because the Seattle regional, while it didn't have 300, like 200, like 70 or 80, somewhere between 60 and 80, I think, is what they said. Um, I was so exhausted after that one, but I wasn't exhausted after Salem. So
Nah, Salem, I felt like I could go and do more things, and then
mm,
Seattle happened, and I couldn't feel like
yeah,
I could do anything.
yeah. Uh, I guess I'll talk about what I played for each because I played two different decks, and so did you, I think. Uh, yeah,
I
you did.
did.
You did. So on the first regional, which was Salem, I played Gold Pride Punk, because I didn't really want to play Exo Sister again, and Gold Pride Punk. I know all the combos pretty easily, so I just went and did it. I didn't do too well, um, and went X3 drop. So
I did the same X3 drop, and I was playing
blue, right?
what was the bird deck?
Blue Wanderies.
Flunderies, yeah.
Yeah.
The highlight of that one though is I did get to do the Dark Smorg with the anti-spell fragrance.
Uh,
So
the highlight
that
of
was an
the
accomplishment.
highlight of that regional for me was when we did the side event for the for the structure deck, and the first person I played against was like, dude, what is this luck, man? That's so not fair. You got
I
everything.
remember
This
that.
feels like this feels like I'm playing against a constructed deck. And then when it was me and in the finals for the structure deck tournament, me and my opponent kept saying Garunix over and over, and you're like, dude, how many Garunix are in this? I think the whole deck is.
Grunix. It just like there's a meme where it's just like, people just go blah 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 and they're just saying the same word over and over. Like in that movie Basketball. Dude, 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 dude. All I could see was you guys go Grunix, 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 Grunix. Yeah, you're right.
Oh man, it that was probably the best part about Salem for me. Other than we tried the we, other than for the lunch break, we went to local beer wine tasting place technically, and Oregon law says every beer and wine tasting place has to serve food. So, uh, so yeah, and then we had those cookies that had
An
big
out of
flakes.
10 on those
Yeah, they
cookies.
had big flakes of salt on them, and it made it so much better. um,
It was great.
yeah, burger was okay, but the cookies were really good. Um, but yeah, matches wise, I played against 2 voiceless decks and then 1 labyrinth deck. And I got a game lost on the labyrinth, and then I just was like, okay, I'm done then after I lost the labyrinth player.
Yeah.
But we got to
I
do.
don't remember what I played, what I played against, but I know that. I mean, I could have done better. Oh, actually, I played against Tempai,
Mm,
and then round two. I can't remember what I played. I remember the Tempai was round one, and I screwed up. I should have just got rid of the field spell and done all the things, and
yeah.
done so much more differently. But I just wasn't. My brain wasn't functioning.
Mm,
Um, So, but Seattle, I played Paleozoic, threw together literally like an hour before the event.
yeah. I played Tenpai Dragon, and I think if there was another event, I would play Tenpai again because I didn't feel exhausted really by the end. I didn't feel exhausted till after we were leaving the venue playing it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't require a lot of brain power and a lot of skill. It just and that's why I would probably play it again. That being said, in my honest opinion, the deck is great. And I love the deck, and I have no qualms with the deck, and it's definitely a deck I could see myself topping with. The thing is that I don't. It's not very fun. Uh, it's it's not like the worst deck or most boring deck I've ever played by any stretch. It's just very one note, and granted that one note is very hard to stop, which makes it very good, but it's very one note and it does one thing and it does it very, very well. And yeah, I went X4 and I played through the whole thing, and I honestly think I don't my last match where I lost against a pure Snake Eye deck, I don't I I calculated it and I think I would have got 34th place. I've been right out of top cut because there was no way um X and 3 could make it. But I do think I would have been really close because I think my tiebreakers were really really good. Because one of our other friends was at a lower table than me, and he won his match because his opponent didn't show up and didn't drop. So he didn't get the bye. His opponent didn't show up, and he got 37th, and he was like 4 or 5 tables down from me on the last round. So I think it was possible that maybe I didn't top, but I would have got really close, and it would have been the second time I got like 2 or 3 out of top cut.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So um man, I what I realized though is so the whole tournament I kept telling people, and it was true for the most part, the deck doesn't need Trident Dragon, and in every scenario I was able to OTK without it, except for the second to last round where my opponent is playing voiceless, and uh Trident Dragon would have got me there. And but I didn't have Trident Dragon, unfortunately, so I couldn't quite get there. And I was like, well, I guess that's what Trident Dragon's for, is specifically the voiceless matchup. But yeah, I
Yeah.
I will say though, what made me feel like a better player than a lot of the Tenpai decks I faced, because I faced a few of them, is I beat them. I beat them every time. I beat them going first, and I beat them going second. And I didn't have Threatening Roar, and I didn't have Heat Wave in my side deck or anything like that either.
I'm
So
sorry about the threatening roar.
yeah,
I'm literally looking at a stack of them, and I'm like, oh. And I realized when you asked for it, I'm like, no, I have my 3 right here. And I didn't catch that you were saying, no, you need 3 of them.
I was like, yeah, do you have threatening roar? And then you're like, I got my set. And then I was like, yeah, or something like that. And then I mentioned it at the event too while we were doing our decks, and no one said anything. I went, oh, I guess they must not have brought them. Okay,
I brought a stack of them too.
but it's fine. Like I said, I didn't need them. Against the Tenpai matchup, what I did is I just brought in 3-dimensional barriers, which the deck can kind of play through. It's not like, 3 torrential tributes, which came up a lot actually for when they made me go first. I highly recommend at least considering torrential tribute for your side deck, if they make you go first, because they're actually phenomenal in this matchup, or in most matchups. The only one that they felt pretty mediocre in, I would say, is Snake Eye. But other than that, against other Tenpai decks, if they don't have the field spell, which I also cited in Cosmic for specifically the field spell to set and banish and all that. Um, yeah, it was great. It's crazy though, because so my matches that I lost against 2 Snake Eye decks and a Voiceless deck, right? Which, that makes sense, right? Those are meta decks. But I also lost against
Yeah.
goblins, and if you're wondering how I lost against goblins with Tenpai, the answer is quite simple. My opponent was main decking Grave of the Super Ancient Organism,
God.
and game one, I have answers in my main deck for back row, but I didn't draw it game one. So when my opponent flipped that on me, it was GG. Uh, Opponent next, what's it called? After that, game two, I just OTK'd them like Tenpai does. Game three, we slugged it out for a little bit, but they eventually got there, and I think I torrentialed at the wrong point as well. But other than that, they also had I also impermed and stopped the tour guide both times, and they had the card that allowed them to follow up and keep playing both times after it. So it it was just one of those things. Opponent had everything, um, and they were main decking a good floodgate against the deck.
Oh yeah, that just happens.
Yeah, and
Just
I told them, I was like, oh, I guess that makes sense for this format, and they're like, it's only good against voiceless. They're like, I'm gonna be real, it's only good against voiceless and uh, your deck. It's not very good against a lot of the other decks. I went, oh, well,
I think I gave my light sworn opponent PTSD.
mm,
That was the round where I think, if I remember right, I scooped up game one because I was like, no way I'm winning this. Like, I couldn't play through the board, and I was like, okay. So I sighted in for going first. I put in Barrier Statue of the Water. Draw my hand. All right. Normal summon the Barrier Statue of Water. Opponent. What? Me. Set 4 back row. Pack. Opponent. That's a monster. Passes. I'm sitting there going, oh, my Barrier Statue is going to stay here. So I beat him game 2. Game 3, I'm staying there just looking at my deck going, I don't sideboard. I can't even beat this. Like, I'm going into this game going second. I'll just play it as it is and hope that I can just grind him down and then slap down the Barrier Statue of Water. I shuffle my deck up, hand it over, and he goes, all right, you're going first. And I'm just sitting there going, what? Draw my hand, Barrier Statue of Water, Paw Desires. Like, Paw Desires. Let's see what we get. Draw 2 more. Got another Barrier Statue of Water. Just slap that down. 4 back row. Opponent's just like, oh gosh, darn it. And I could see him pause at one point when he gets 2 level 4s on the field and he's looking through his extra deck. And he goes, try and do this, attack. I'm like, no, you're not doing that. You're not doing that. And I'm sitting there and in my brain I went, he doesn't have a Abyss Dweller. And I'm like, he can't have a Abyss Dweller. He got the Abyss Dweller. We get done with the game and he looks at me and he goes, I cut the Abyss Dweller. He's like, I was playing it the night before, but I cut it before the event. And I'm like, why? And he went, it just didn't seem that good. I'm like, when you face a deck exactly like yours, Abyss Dweller's great. You have the space for it. You should be playing Abyss Dweller in Lightsworn. I'm sorry, you don't want a deck to be able to outmill you.
You
And in
so
this format, like Abyss Dweller's fine.
I would argue Abyss Dweller is very, very good, just in general.
Yeah,
It-
right? Like in general, it's just a really good card. Even in this format, because there are so many things that interact with the graveyard, we just go, no.
So
But like in my brain, I was like, I win. He doesn't have Abyss Dweller. He can't beat me.
here's
Um,
out of all the top decks, right? Dwellers Dweller doesn't completely shut down all of them, but it hurts all of them enough that they have to get over Dweller first
yeah,
and get rid of it. Snake Eye can do a lot of their plays, but they can't use Flamberg Dragon, and they can't to summon two more dudes and to link climb up very easily or as easy. Um, so there's that. Uh, Voiceless can't use their graveyard, their Saphira to what's it called? Activate Engrave and Ritual Summon from there. They can't use Low as effect to get back. They can't. I think those are like the two main ones that I know of. Tenpai, although they don't always need it, can't summon back their synchros that have graveyard effects for when you have attacked 3 times, they summon themselves back. They can't do that. And sometimes that could be the difference between winning and losing against those decks. So it's crazy to me that Abyss Dweller didn't seem very good because it's even good against a lot of random rogue matchups. Like what if you ran into, I don't know, Burning Abyss is still a popular rogue deck that people play from time to time, and
so the rest of this story is I faced one of his friends the next round. And I'm playing and I set my hand and do things. And I flip a Paleozoic and he's like, it's you. Yeah. I'm like, because I'm like, yeah, we faced each other before. He's like, no, you faced so and so last round. I'm like, and I kind of looked at him. He's like, the Lightsworn player. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I faced him. And he's like, yeah. And he's all, I just talked to him and he was a little annoyed that he cut the Abyss Dweller. He's like, I didn't know he cut him. He's all, we both agreed it was a good card and he shouldn't cut it. And I'm sitting there going, bro, even the friend told him not to cut it.
yeah,
I would have had a hard time dealing with an Abyss Dweller. I would have used so much resource. I mean, I'm confident that my field I could have done it, but I also know that I would have been using more resource to outpace him. So what he did wrong against my deck, and he realized it at the end after everything was said and done because I discussed it with him. He wasn't making me. He turn one he just set when his monster had more than 1,000 attack. It could have attacked over that. He should have been pressuring me
mm,
to activate cards because if I don't have to activate cards, I'm not going to.
yeah. It's like that's just like the general rule about facing trap decks. I'm very good. Uh, we play tested a lot before this event. Uh, I play tested a little bit of Tenpai, but I didn't really play test it that much because I just honestly I kept winning so easily that I was just like okay, but and everything but I'm really good at navigating trap decks. So I tested a friend of ours deck, the person who drove us. Shout out to Trevor, who he was very unconfident about his deck and didn't think it was that good. So I playtested his deck for him and ended up showing Stefan at least, because I played a lot of games against Stefan, where I would just break Stefan's board and win. And no matter what he threw at me, I would just break his board and win with our friend's deck. Our friend had a very unique deck where he just threw a couple of his favorite engines or engines he thought was cool together, and it worked. At least for me, I was able to navigate most hands. There's only been a couple when playtesting that it just outright were true bricks. But our friend,
If he
unfortunately,
had more testing time with that deck, he
yeah,
would have been very good.
yeah, that
Like just looking at that deck, even when he like posted the deck list and you were like, hey, let's try it, and you were doing that stuff to me, I'm like, man, I wish we could have just made a tutorial video on how to play this deck for him so he could just watch it.
Mm. The problem is, I mean, we'd have to upload it to our actual YouTube, which would have been fine. But
Yeah.
and then said, "Hey, Trevor, look at this deck and everything. Look at me, watch me play this deck, and watch me break Stefan's board, no matter what he throws at me." I think,
Even if we had to just record a bunch of footage of it
mm,
and then just have a commentary over the top of what you were doing, and, you know,
mm,
or we could have even slowed or set the timer to near infinite and just let you sit there and explain how to play it out. And
yeah,
I think that might be the trick to get him a little better at the game. If he can't get as much practice because he has his own things, he can't get as much practice, is it maybe we just start doing tutorial videos on the decks he's playing and help
maybe,
him.
maybe. I know that I'm as our friend at Yu-Gi-Oh Commander, shout out to him again, said, I'm a pretty technical player, and that means that uh I'm pretty good at picking up decks as well, especially if I kind of understand what all the cards already do. So a lot of times when I have issues with picking up a deck is that either its playstyle doesn't mesh well with my current mentality of playing Yu-Gi-Oh, or if I don't quite understand what the engines do or how they kind of synergize together. Like, but I understand the Horus engine. I've played Horus engines in a lot of decks, and like I've play tested like with tier limits. I understand the Yugi deck, the Shining Sarcophagus, because I played that deck and played it a decent amount, and I understand the Dogmatica stuff that he threw in. So when he threw them all together, I understood how to play it because I understand all three engines and I understand the restrictions on the cards. So I am able, and as you told Trevor, who said his hands, who when Trevor said his hands were bad and he kept getting bad hands, as you told Trevor, are you sure you're assessing the hands correctly? Because Michael is able, as me, is able to look at hands a lot of the time that I don't see how to win and win with them, and will look at hands probably that you don't see how to win or use and use it. And I think that overall he needs to get better at Yu-Gi-Oh, and that's why I recommended Sword Soul to him, because I think that's a good deck for him to do it. He has
That is one of my favorite decks. I hate playing against it, but I also like it because Master Duel gives it as like that bring your friends into game deck.
mm,
That was genius because the floor for that deck is low, right?
yes,
But
extremely.
the ceiling is so high, and the deck actually encourages you to do weird stuff to experiment with it and learn how to get to the higher ceiling. So
It
it's nice because it's real easy. Everything's super basic about it. Nothing's complicated,
mm,
and then it also has different plays where you just go, what do I do in this situation? And you just kind of reach into your extra deck, which is just a toolbox of ridiculous cards.
yeah,
And you just have, and like the great part about the deck is also a lot of people have no confidence with using hand traps correctly, right?
yeah.
The deck doesn't care if you piss those hand traps away.
I I kept I know that he was very opposed to he was very opposed to Pod Desires until this thing, and I'm not sure until this tournament, and I'm not sure if this tournament changed his mind on Pot of Desires. This friend, uh,
Changed AJ's mind. He hates it.
yeah, because he kept drawing because he drew into two more right out of 60 cards.
He would always like end up drawing one extra or two of them into 60 cards, and that's just I never encountered that problem playing Pod Desires in the deck,
Well, it's
right?
yeah. Well, what I was telling Trevor was that that's fine if you draw more because you're playing the Horus engine, so you just discard it. And if you don't have the Horus stuff, if you have Shining Sarcophagus says if your opponent once per turn, if your opponent special summons a monster from your graveyard, you can send one spell card from your hand to the graveyard to send that monster to the graveyard, or one of those monsters to the graveyard because it's a monster or monsters. But you just send a spell and it sends it back to the graveyard. So
Yeah.
so if you draw another Desires off Desires, as long as you have a Shining Sarcophagus, you're good. As long as you have the Horus Sarcophagus, you're also good. So it worked out, like, in terms of Trevor's deck. In terms of the Paleo deck, because you guys aren't playing Karma Cut or Wing Blast or even
We're playing
Raigeki Break.
Damascus, and Damascus usually wants to discard cards that we draw that we want to see. Well, for my build, discarding Desires was fine because if I didn't have roll back in the hand as a discard target,
Yeah.
all of my other cards, I streamlined my deck, which AJ went with a different build where he was playing, and he did better than me and had way more results. But I went with a more consistent where I want to be able to activate every trap in my deck. And he went with the more, well, if I get it to the graveyard and use it, you know, then I'll be able to, just roll it back and cheat it.
Hmm.
So in his build, I feel like Desires was probably awful because he has so many good cards he can discard. And with me, I think my discard targets were Pod Desires,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Rollback.
any of the rollback, and then I was also playing Backjack.
Yeah.
And so there's give and take.
Yeah. Uh, there's a lot of interesting things that happened. Oh, uh, my last opponent, or my second to last opponent, because my last opponent was a Snake Eye player, but my second to last opponent was a voiceless player. And the voiceless player really, I could tell one didn't like Tenpai. He seemed really annoyed at all the cards, and he got real upset when I told him, and we called the judge, and the judge ruled in my favor about how Tenpai Chundra works. Chundra is the red one, out of red, white, and green colors. So Chundra says if you control a fire dragon monster, you you can special summon this card from your hand, and it's an activated effect. It doesn't say you have to have it and resolve to activate and resolve it. It just says if you control one, you can do it. So my opponent has SP Little Knight on the field and tries to banish my thing and says that doesn't resolve. It says yes, it does because it already activated. And then we keep going back and forth. He tries to get an input from someone, from one of the table mates about it. Asked it. The table agrees with it. I said, no, you're both wrong. They call the judge over. Judge says whose turn is it. Asks all the right questions. Reads my card. Says it works. And then my opponent looks annoyed. It works. They still stop me from OTKing them, and then they end up winning the game still. But you know, they they fought the fight to try to stop it, and they were salty about it. So yeah, it's just one of those things. And then he's like, I don't think that should have done that and everything. And then I explained it again and very like try to anything. I didn't bring up I'm a judge because the last time I've done that when explaining a ruling after the game or during a game after a judge ruled in my favor, they went, "Oh, well then you should have said that and I would have agreed with you." And I don't like when people do that because that teaches them bad habits because if a judge happens to be a scummy person and everything and could abuse that power if they know people are going to do that. So I don't encourage that type of behavior. I always say no, ask for a judge who's going to obviously be non-biased.
Yeah.
Cause yeah,
But it's all about understanding your deck too, and what can and can't.
mm, I
I know.
I think the problem with Tenpai, right, is that there's nothing I could explain that's gonna be crazy about the deck. Like, how do I explain that? Oh, I drew the white one, they stopped it, but I also drew the quick play, so I guess I went to battle and then OTK'd them anyway on my good stories, and then my bad beat stories if they just had it. Oh, they had everything, or they did everything to stop me, or whatever. Uh, but I will say, while I lost to the uh, I lost to I it was one of let's see, it wasn't the voiceless player. It was, I think it was the goblin player. I lost to the goblin player, but we both would not give each other an inch in game 3 and everything. It just we barely squeaked out ahead. And that was just, and he was like, "Man, that was like we just didn't want to let the other win so bad." I was like, "Yeah, dude, that was wild. It was a good slugfest though." Like, I had D-Berry at all the right moments, and then I had Torrential at the right moments, and he had the imperms at the right moments, and all the cards that stopped me at the right moments, and it kept going back and forth and back and forth, and I kept drawing really well, and then my opponent would draw really well to try to stop me, and eventually he got me. But yeah, it was just really good back and forth gameplay. I think it was with the goblin player. I might be misremembering because I was pretty tired by the end of it, and I slept and rested like the next day almost entirely. Like you said you
Yeah.
slept till like 5 the next day. I slept till like I said, like almost 10. I think it was like 9:40 something in the morning when I woke up. And even
Yeah,
then I
no, I
didn't.
basically got home and went to sleep and woke up long enough to call out.
Mm, it just so exhausted. As for how Seattle was ran, it was honestly ran a lot better than a lot of previous Seattle events I've been to. Because in my experience, Seattle is like ran like somewhat poorly and not not like completely awful to where I never want to go to Seattle, but to the point that Salem is often ran better and often um
It's the space that is genuinely my only complaint.
yeah, Seattle doesn't have a lot of space because the space that they put us in has a maximum occupancy of like I think it says like it's supposed to be like 180, but they stuff like 180 people uh they stuff like 280 players, like 100 over capacity into this little room. And so
Yeah.
it gets really hot and there's not enough table space usually, and it's pretty rough. And that usually starts a little bit later than Salem usually does, which not entirely that bad. Usually, it's usually like at worst a half hour past what the normal starting date is, where at starting time is scheduled to be. But Salem almost always has just started right on time. Another thing, but because Salem has more space, they can do this. Is they have fresh pitchers of water, like of fresh water and everything, and ice cold fresh water too. And one of the best parts about that water, I complain about water all the time, is city water specifically, is it doesn't smell or taste like chemicals. And
Depends on the pitcher. You gotta get the right pitcher.
yeah, most of the time it didn't. You're right. There were the pitchers that did, and I just avoided those for the rest of the
You have
test.
to look at that space at the top. If there is just like a lot of space at the top,
Mm,
10 out of 10, you know that a lot of the chemicals will have naturally dissolved into that space, so you're good. If they're full and like full of ice and water and kind of fresh, there's nowhere for those chemicals to actually naturally dissolve to, so it's going to be chemically.
yeah, it's funny because so I got a water bottle at Seattle, and I just kept refilling it at the water fountain, right? Well, I was So because I was so thirsty, I actually ignored the chemical taste or whatever. But when I got home, right, I woke and I went to sleep. I woke up right, completely parched. My normal water bottle that I have by my bed, that's huge and full of like cold water and well and insulated, was empty, and because I didn't fill it up, and I went, damn it, and so I grabbed the bottle that was I had brought back from Seattle. I took a drink out of it, and even though I was really thirsty, I could taste the chemicals because it was all just trapped in that bottle, and then it could smell it, and it literally smelled like chlorine, and I was like, nope, nope.
Oh,
I'm.
bro.
That's why I hate city water. Like big cities like that, they all smell and taste like chlorine to me.
Yeah, yeah. I'm used to city water, so
Yeah, I live out in the country, so I get like non-chemically treated water, and it it tastes great. I can't like drink the water out of my faucet, but even the ones that I fill up, it doesn't have the chemicals because the water that we fill up, we use a machine outside of our local grocery store that treats the water with UV lights instead of chemicals. So it doesn't taste like the chlorine and the fluoride and stuff, and doesn't smell like it. It just doesn't have a smell, and it just tastes like clean water.
mm,
So that rant about water aside, um, Master Duel had a big well, a 10 GB update, and it's all for bug fixes and announcements of like new product. And in the new selection pack, we're getting Horus, the Horus engine, um, which some of the people in the tier limit group are excited about, and some are saying that we don't need it because we have Kit Kalos. And we're getting the most meta-defining card out of the bunch. SP Little Knight is finally coming to Master Duel.
oh god.
It's funny, you see it on Reddit for a little bit. There was a bunch of doomsayers like Master Duel's over, pack it up. We're getting the most broken card released of in 2023. It's over, and I'm sitting here like, no, we have the most broken card of 2023 still legal, and that would be a Rise Heart, a walking macrocosmos that is also removal. I think it's a little bit stronger than a one-time banish, permanent banish, and then ones that keep coming back on the end phase.
Oh geez, Rise Heart is still legal on there, huh?
Yeah, so it's Sprite Elf.
I know, I was about to say so is Sprite Elf.
Yeah, so is Kit Kalos. But in all fairness with the tier, Merly's banned instead, which rest in peace, Merly. Uh, but also, everything else is limited except for Rhinoheart. So like literally every tier card, almost every tier card, except for Rhinoheart, their counter trap and their normal trap, which their counter and normal trap uh sees play now, but it didn't really. I mean the counter trap was maybe a one of, and that was it. And the maybe and same thing with the normal trap, while the what's it called? The continuous trap, which is just a once per turn negate a monster effect and send a monster you control to the graveyard. Uh, that card is limited on Master Duel. So, tier limit is hit pretty hard, but it's still playable because Kit Kalos and all these cards are still legal. So,
Hmm.
but yes, we're finally getting that. We're getting mementos as well, which I don't know what that deck does. I've read all the cards multiple times and I still don't understand what it's trying to accomplish. But we're getting mementos, and I don't remember what the other card we're getting is, or the other like things we're getting. I'd have to look it up. I don't have Master Duel open in front of me, but so I'll open Master Duel because I've already updated, and Stefan's gonna sit there clicking, trying to get his to update to make sure it works.
It's not fair, man. I'm starting to think it's just my laptop,
Okay.
which is annoying because I can play stuff like,
Mm,
Helldivers, everything like that, and I'm fine.
okay.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, which my phone can run, my Nintendo Switch can run. Nah, man.
All right. So the cards I missed that we know about for sure are Salamangreat Raging Phoenix, which is a card that Snake Eye runs. Um, and Overload Fusion. But I pretty much covered everything else we know about the set for sure, like SP Little Knight, um, the Horus, all the Horus cards, the Mementos, because they have. I have to assume that it's gonna be all the Horus cards because Horus, the Black Flame deity, is in this as like one of the cover cards that they're showing, and so is the big Memento, and I don't think they would have those without that. So yeah, I don't even remember what Overload Fusion does. Oh, okay. Reveal one fusion monster in your extra deck. Send one material whose name is mentioned on that card from the deck to the grave, but for the rest of the turn, you cannot special summon or activate the effects of the monster with the same name as the one sent. Fusion summon one dark fusion monster from your extra deck by banishing materials in your graveyard. Okay, so it's a once per turn you use one of these effects. You can reveal a fusion, send a monster listed on it, or summon a dark fusion using the overload. So it's a very fixed version of pretty much the Dark Chimera Future Fusion Overload Fusion combo that used to see play in Machine OTK back in Troop
Yeah.
Soup Scoop format. It's like a weird in between version between them. So just interesting thing. Also, I guess Return of the King and Blazing Arena's selection packs are going away, but we know that because every time a new one gets introduced, the other two, either one or two of the old ones go away. So that's not really too surprising. Um, Other than that, I think that uh, we got most of the things we want to talk about out of the way. Talked about regionals. I got 75th place at the 10 pie one, and I didn't look what I got for the gold pride since I just went X3 drop immediately.
I was 200 something.
Yeah. Our poor friend Trevor, dude. He misplayed and then he scrubbed out really bad and then he got a game lost because he had banished cards off desires he forgot to shuffle back in, and it just that day was not his day.
Oh, dude, that's just going to reinforce not playing desires.
Yeah, true. It is rough, man.
Oh, my extra deck sleeves were the same as my main deck. I had to be so hyper vigilant to make sure I wasn't shuffling in extra deck cards.
Oh, I was the same way with my gold pride. My gold pride had my extra, my side, and my main all the same sleeves, and it was like I was so like vigilant on making sure either both after every game, after every individual game, I'd sit through and shuffle my or look at my freaking graveyard and my banish and everything really and very meticulously, and before every game make sure I uh remember to have my deck list. I forgot, make sure that I decided. My main deck was exactly as it was supposed to be, and I didn't have side deck cards. I was like very kind of paranoid about that. Luckily, in both regionals, because I was so vigilant, it paid off. No problems. I did almost, uh, in my 10 pie deck, I almost started a game with banished cards from Prosperity. But before we drew our hands, and before we even gave our opponent, the opportunity to cut, I went, oh, wait, and then put the banished extra deck cards back. So Yeah, it was just just I think I do want to try either playing I've been playing so much Tearlament on Master Duel that I do want to put the deck back together in paper eventually.
I think that'd be cool. Play
I
the Paleozoic version.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, the 60 card Paleo version, because that version is what I started playing on Master Duel. And while I don't have Kit Kalos, I don't think I need Kit. So yeah, I wouldn't need Kit in the Paleo one. That's also
Just need
really
to buy a
funny.
stack of Polonoids.
Yeah. It's also really funny that with what's it called? Um that you confuse with the paleo monsters if they're in your graveyard. Like if you detach for Zeus and everything, you confuse with them because they're aquas, the extra deck ones. You can't do it with on the field because it's a monster effect that would be affecting them. But when they're in the graveyard, that effect doesn't apply, so you confuse with them.
Oh, wow, you can recycle them. Huh.
Uh-huh. So it's pretty
That
funny.
seems interesting.
Yeah. The problem with the TCG version though is that uh I have to play King of the Swamp if I want to play like Rukalos, and I have to play but other than that, it's like fine, I think. But I need but I'm not gonna put that deck together until the field spells get reprinted in Rarity Collection, and I can get the Tearlament field spell, the good one, the Planet Perlerino, for cheap. Because right now it's still sitting around like over 20, and I'm like, well, over 20 doesn't necessarily break the bank. That's still a little bit more than I want to spend on it at the moment. Let's see. It is. Oh, it dropped down even more. It's 13. 12 from one of the things. Well, then, I might consider picking that up later, but not at the moment. We'll pick them up a little bit later because they're starting to dip because tier limits aren't doing anything in this. I missed my like window to pick them up apparently and play them for the events because in February they were like $10 for the unlimited ones, and then
Oh,
when I looked at him back in April, they shot up back up to like 15. So just unlucky, I guess, timing. But another card I have to get, and this one is still expensive, is Tearlament's Kashtira. It is, well, not like super expensive. It's just a little bit more than than I would want to spend. And the only reason I justified spending this money on the white tenpai at $17 to $18 a copy is because literally that's the only card in the deck that was that much because I didn't buy the trident. Everything else was like less than $1. So
yeah.
so I was like, I can justify this because I'm buying a whole deck. It's hard for me to justify spending $60 for a playset of cards, or a little under 60 for a playset of cards. I'm not gonna have like the full deck still because like I would still need the planets, and then I need Trivikarma because I don't actually own Trivikarma either, which searches for the planet. So yeah, that's what I think my plans are for the future. Uh, but I think we've rambled on long enough. We've been
Yeah.
rambling on, and we've been recording for almost 50 minutes. I think that's a good place to stop. So if you enjoy the podcast, like, commenting, and subscribing is greatly appreciated. If it is your birthday today, happy birthday, and of course, and as always, have a wonderful day.